I think by now it is commonly observed that a crisis in economic inequality dominates the current global arena. This crisis has been precipitated by two factors, the first being the natural tendency of current established monetary structures to restrict and inhibit change, growth, and personal freedom. Establishment structures that, when looked at objectively, serve little purpose other than contributing to the growing wealth gap, operating in complete disregard for human sustainability. The second factor is the start of a radical change in the human's evaluation of themselves. A revolutionary change is taking place in the human's conception of their own nature and destiny. We are moving from thinking of ourselves as separate, isolated organisms patiently accepting injustice and exploitation from unseen others, from kings and monarchs of the past to the political corporate collusion and international banking cartels of today. We are moving towards the realization that these social tendencies of exploitation, stratification, and injustice are ending. A human who sees themselves as part of the entire Earth system cannot accept tyranny from any minority, no matter how wealthy or powerful. Until the agricultural revolution began, the notion of property and ownership was non-existent. It started out innocently, our nomadic species settling onto farms and beginning to trade their goods with other people in small towns. But over time, as gold and other forms of currency were introduced to help facilitate trade, the unexpected result was a growing competitive and greed-based mentality, and humans began to treat each other in some of the most inhumane fashions imaginable, all for the sake of wealth and power. They began to consider each other or other groups as competition rather than cousins. In various forms, I say again, we have gone from kings and monarchs of the past to the political corporate collusion and international banking cartels dominant today. There is little difference. These are established structures that inhibit continuous change, true freedom. Living under these conditions of extreme poverty, subordination, or wage slavery, many humans lose faith in themselves. They come to feel that perhaps they truly are less worthy than others. So long as humans maintain this subservient attitude and accept the place assigned to them by society, a kind of peace does exist, but it is an uneasy peace, in which humans are forced to patiently submit to insult, injustice, and exploitation, and thus it is a negative peace. True peace is not merely the absence of some negative force or open hostility. True peace is the presence of positive forces, truth, goodwill, and global human camaraderie, which is being made increasingly possible by advancements in communication and translation technologies. In fact, a myriad of factors have come together to cause the human to take a new look at themselves, individually and as a group. They have begun to reevaluate themselves. Our scientific inquiries have revealed to us a sort of symbiotic relationship that exists between all living and non-living systems on this planet. Through the recognition of the entire Earth system as a type of organism of which we are only a part, the only sentient part, our inextricable connection to and responsibility towards nature becomes clear. We must pledge ourselves to each other, to humanity, and align our actions and our technology with the planetary systems necessary for human and environmental sustainability. This new human attitude carries also with it the realization that all people truly are equal. We recognize that no person or class of people can ever be more worthy of possessing or having more access to the resources of this planet. The determination of humans to win freedom from every form of tyranny springs from the same profound longing for freedom that has historically motivated oppressed peoples all over the world. The struggle for freedom has developed slowly, yet at an ever-increasing pace, and is not going to end suddenly. We have made progress and will continue to do so. However, privileged groups rarely give up their privileges without strong resistance. But when oppressed people rise up against oppression, there can be no stopping point short of complete freedom. Realism compels us to admit that the global struggle will continue until freedom and equality is a reality for all the people of the world. We must demand that society be updated to current knowledge, using clean, natural technologies to provide every single person with a decent standard of living. We must demand that humanity's children be not born into starvation or perpetual debt, or brainwashed into performing pointless, mind-numbing tasks just so that they can fund the basic necessities of their lives. We must demand that society remain emergent and true to the scientific method, with its basic structure and tenets always open for challenge, change, and revision. We demand true equality, and we demand the abundance that our technology has made possible. We demand the freedom of all human beings once and for all. We demand the Emancipation Proclamation of the entire human race. Hence, the basic question which confronts the world's oppressed is, how is the struggle against the forces of injustice to be waged? There are two possible answers. One is to resort to the all too prevalent method of physical violence and corroding hatred. The danger in this method is in its futility. Violence solves no social problems, it merely creates new and more complicated ones. If humans today succumb to the temptation of using violence in the struggle for justice, unborn generations will live in a desolate night of bitterness, and our chief legacy to them will be yet another seemingly endless reign of chaos. The alternative to violence is nonviolent resistance. This method was made famous most memorably by Mohandas Gandhi, who used it to free India from the domination of the British Empire. 5 points can be made concerning nonviolence as the only method possible in bringing about true human equality. First, this method is not for cowards. It does resist. The nonviolent resistor is just as strongly opposed to the evil which they protest as the person who uses violence. Their method is passive or non-aggressive in the sense only that they are not physically aggressive towards their opponent, but their mind and emotions are always active, constantly seeking to persuade the opponent that they are mistaken. This method is passive physically, but strongly active mentally. It is non-aggressive physically, but dynamically aggressive psychologically. A second point is that unlike violence, nonviolent resistance does not seek to defeat or humiliate the opponent, but to win their friendship and understanding. The nonviolent resistor must often express their protest through non-cooperation or boycotts, yet they realize that non-cooperation and boycotts are not ends in themselves. They are merely means to awaken a sense of morality in the opponent. The end goal is redemption and reconciliation. The aftermath of nonviolence allows for the creation of a free human community, while the aftermath of violence can only be tragic bitterness. The third characteristic of this method is that the attack is directed against establishment forces rather than against other humans who are caught up in those forces. The nonviolent resistor knows that it is behaviors we are seeking to defeat, not the people who fall victim to them. A fourth point that must be brought out concerning nonviolent resistance is that it avoids not only external physical violence, but also the internal violence of the psyche. At the center of nonviolence stands the principle of love. In struggling for human dignity, the oppressed people of the world must not allow themselves to become embittered against their oppressors or indulge in hate campaigns. To retaliate with hate and bitterness does nothing but intensify the overall hate in the world. Along this path of evolution, humans are gaining enough sense and enough morality to break this chain of hate. This can only be done by projecting the ethics of love to the center of our lives. In speaking of love at this point, we are not referring to some sentimental emotion. It would be nonsense to urge people to love their oppressors in an affectionate sense. When we speak of loving those who oppress us, we speak of a love which is expressed in the Greek word agape. Agape means nothing sentimental or basically affectionate. It means maintaining an intrinsic, redeeming goodwill for all people, an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. Another term which could be used, which seeks to exemplify the earth as a system of interconnected organisms, is extensionality. Seeing love as different levels of extensionality, we begin to love people not because we particularly like them, not because their attitude and ways appeal to us, but because we recognize our empirical connection to that person through nature. We choose not to hate people for succumbing to weaknesses we all possess. Here, we rise to the position of loving the person who does the evil deed while condemning the deed he does. At this point in the speech, which has been largely adapted from the article Nonviolence and Racial Justice by Martin Luther King Jr., comfort is offered in the fifth point by saying that the universe, and indeed God himself, is on the side of nonviolence and nonviolent resistors. Having no belief in a supernatural entity called God, or even a universe that takes sides, I can make no such assurances. I can't guarantee that we will win. Only you can do that. First, by making the choice to reject the system in whatever form that takes. Secondly, encourage others to do the same. I know it's often an uncomfortable topic to bring up, but if we want to rise to the challenge and break the cycle of violence globally for the first time, we must educate our brothers and sisters and allow ourselves to be educated by them. Which brings me to my third and most important point: contribute. It is necessary that we completely redesign our entire culture and socio-economic infrastructure. We need everybody's ideas and participation to make this happen. The method of nonviolent resistance challenges all people struggling for justice and freedom to do so with dignity and discipline. May all who suffer oppression in this world reject the self-defeating method of retaliatory violence and choose the method that seeks to redeem. Through using this method wisely and courageously, we will emerge from the bleak and desolate midnight of this inhumanity and into the bright daybreak of freedom and justice. We are the Zeitgeist Movement.